Okay, welcome to One Look Megaminx OLL episode 11. Today we're going to be covering set 21, which is this OLL set. We have this line EO and nothing else oriented, right? So because there's so many misoriented pieces, there's a bunch of ways that things can be oriented. So this is a big set with 10 cases in it, and the recognition is probably the most complicated of any set we've covered so far. But the Algs should be relatively easy to learn because there's a bunch of mirrors in there. And overall, I think it's, not as bad as the sets which are going to come up in the next few videos. So, as always, all of the Algs that I mentioned will be listed down in the description, as well as links to a Megaminx OLL Trainer and my Megaminx Algs document, which contains all of the OLL and PLI Algs that I use and recommend. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So first up, we have 21A plus and minus, and 21E plus and minus. So the recognition for these cases is kind of a lot to look for to start out with, but I promise you that with enough practice, you can get faster at it. So I recognize that it's a 21A case if I have a 3-sticker bar on one side, and on the other side I have a 2-sticker bar that's sort of down the narrow end of this line EO, right? So it's not these two pieces, because that would be at the wide end. It's these two, because that would be the narrow end, right? And then, of course, they're mirrors, right? So with 21A plus, that 3-sticker bar is on the right-hand side, and with 21A minus, it's on the left-hand side. And then for the E cases, it's kind of the inverse. So instead of a 3-sticker bar, we have one side that has nothing on it. And then instead of having a 2-sticker bar with the stickers down the narrow end, it's a 2-sticker bar that's down the wide end, right? And then for the plus and minus cases, they're mirrors, as usual, but it's the other way around this time. So with 21E plus, the side with nothing on it is on the left-hand side, and with 21E minus, the side with nothing on it is on the right-hand side. So they're kind of the opposite of the 21A cases. Yeah, I know there was a lot, but just practice it. You can get faster with it if you just drill the set. So that's why I've got the Megaminx OLL Trainer in the description. Anyway, as for algorithms, they're actually pretty straightforward and should be pretty easy to learn, unlike the recognition. So this first one here, 21A plus, we're going to do it from this angle with that 3-sticker bar in the front, and it looks like this. If U2 are U2 prime R prime, U are U prime R prime, F prime. So what we're doing here is just if and then inverse sexy by doubling up on the U moves. So U2 R, U2 prime R prime, and then just regular inverse sexy and then F prime. So just like that. So it's actually a pretty nice case, to be honest, and should be very easy to learn. And the second one is just the back mirror of that first one, right? So 21A minus, we're going to do it from this angle with the bar in the back right, and it looks like this. BR prime, U2 prime R prime U2 R, U prime R prime U R, BR, right? Just like that. And then next up we have 21E plus, and this is actually just going to be the inverse of 21A minus that we just looked at. So we're going to do this from this angle with that side with nothing on it in the back right, or I guess the bar in the front left, whichever works. And then it's just the inverse alg. So BR prime, back sexy, R prime U2 prime R U2, BR, right? The those final moves that like U2 double flick into BR might take a little bit of getting used to, but as you can see, it is fast once you are used to it. So just practice it and you'll be fine. And then finally we have 21E minus, and this is the inverse of 21A plus. So all four of these algs are just transformations of the same thing, right? And this one we're going to do from this angle with, I guess, the bar in the back left, or that side with nothing in it in the front, whichever of those is easiest for you. And then it's just F, sexy, and then R, U2, R prime, U2 prime. So sexy but doubling up on the U moves, and then F prime, right? Just like that. There you go. So a pretty nice case, to be honest. Then next up we have 21B plus and minus and 21D plus and minus. So the recognition for these cases is very similar to the previous four, just flipped around a little bit. So here the B cases have a 3-sticker bar and a 2-sticker bar, just like A, but this time the 2-sticker bar is at the wide end of this line EO. So that's the differentiating factor. And then with these D cases, we have a 2-sticker bar and a side with nothing on it, just like the E cases. But here, that 2-sticker bar is at the narrow end, so that's what differentiates it. And then, of course, they're mirrors, as always. So here, B plus has that 3-sticker bar on the left-hand side, B minus has it on the right-hand side, and then E plus has that sort of nothing side on the right-hand side, and D minus, that's D plus, and D minus has it on the left-hand side, right? So relatively straightforward, just kind of, a reasonable amount to learn, so you will need to drill it. Anyway, as for the algorithms, this first one here, 21b plus, we're going to do from this angle, so that line EO is sort of vertically oriented, like symmetrical from left to right, and the alg looks like this. R prime, U2 prime, then push F prime, push U, F U prime, then RUR prime, drag U, R, right? So some unusual finger tricks in there with those push moves and that drag move, but, reasonably fast once you are used to it. Ooh, let's see if we can get it fast actually. There you go. This is also the inverse of 37e minus, which we learned last week, so if you know that, that might help you with learning it. But yeah, that's 21b plus, which is pretty decent. For 21b minus, the alg is going to be from this angle, right? It's the same as the previous one, with that line EO vertically oriented. And the alg looks like this. R prime, F prime, U prime, with our middle finger, F, then R, U2 prime, R prime, U2 R, U prime, R prime, U2 R. This alg can actually be understood intuitively as being essentially edge orientation into winter variation. So we're doing R prime, F prime, U prime, F R to orient all the edges, and then we're just left with this winter variation case, which we do as U2 prime, R prime, U2 R, U2 prime, U prime, R prime, U2 R. So if that helps, that's great, but if not, I think it's probably a reasonably easy alg to learn anyway. Just like that. So that's 21b. For 21d, 21d plus here has, I guess, two options that are decent. The first option is from this angle, right, with that sort of nothing side on the front. And this is another F2 gen F prime alg, like the ones that we learned before, the A and E cases. But this one is just F, then inverse XE, but with U2s. So U2 R, U2 prime R prime. Same thing again. U2 prime R, U2 R, U2 prime R prime. And then F prime, right? Just like that. So very easy finger tricks and very easy to learn, but it's kind of a lot of moves. So I don't use it as my main alg. What I would recommend as your main alg is actually from this angle. So that same angle as the previous two. And it looks like this. R prime, F prime, U prime, F. Then U2 prime R, U2. Then R prime. And then push U, R. Right? And once again, this can be kind of understood as being edge orientation into winter variation. So we're doing that, and then cancelling into this winter variation, right? Just like that. Done a bit faster, it looks like that. Hang on. Okay. I can't turn on the game maker apparently. There you go. Not too slow, but yeah. And then for this final case, 21d minus, the alg that we're going to use is the mirror of the first alg that I showed there. So it's actually BR 2 gen BR prime 2 gen BR, right? So we're going to hold that side with nothing in it in the back right, and it looks like this. BR prime, U2 prime R prime U2 R, U2 prime R prime U2 R, BR, right? Just like that. So not the fastest alg, but it's super easy to learn. So yeah, that's B and D. And then finally we have 21C plus and C minus. So these are the cases that have a two-sticker bar on either side of that line EO. And then as far as telling them apart, you can see that they're mirrors. So you could either look at the position of the headlights, which for 21C plus is in the back left and 21C minus is in the back right. Or you could look at the positions of these bars. So with C plus, those bars are on the right-hand side of each face. And with C minus, they're on the left-hand side of each face. Whichever one of those works for you is fine. For algorithms, both of these two cases have a few different algs that are good for them. Or that are decent anyway. So if you don't like the algs that I show, then feel free to check the sheet and see if any of the other ones work better. But I'm just going to show you the ones that I use. Otherwise, it might take a while because I think there's like 3 for this case. So yeah. So for 21C plus, the alg that I use is from this angle, right? So with, I guess, the headlights in the back right. And it looks like this. R prime, F prime, U2 prime, F. And then F6E F prime. So that F becomes an F2, right? So F6E F prime and then U2 R. Right? Just like that, except we double flick the F2. So we end up with that finger trick. So as you can see, pretty decent alg. And then finally, 21C minus. We're going to do this one from this angle, right? So the headlight's in the front. And this is just a BR prime 2gen BR alg. So this is BR prime, and then back inverse sexy, and the same thing but with U2s, and then the same thing again, but again, just U moves, and then BR, right? So kind of a lot of moves, but they're relatively easy to finger trick, so the alg isn't as slow as you might think. Just like that. Anyway, that's set 21.